So we're going to spend some more time on multiplying polynomials. So we're going to dabble in 4.5 and 4.6 and do some applications as well. But I want to start with a common misconception, and we talked about this in class, but I wanted to cover it in a video just to make sure that it was that we really reinforce this idea. So remember that these three situations here are all a bit different from one another, and so make sure that you really understand and identify what the operations are telling you to do, right? So for number 54, well, let's start with 62. 62 we're foiling, right? That's most recent and familiar, right? In the last lesson, that's all we did, right? Is just FOIL, multiply binomials by binomials and so forth. So notice how there's nothing in between these parentheses here, right? The parentheses are next to one another, and so that's when we multiply, right? That's when we FOIL. When we distribute is when we have something next to the parentheses, right? When we have two sets of binomials next to each other, we're going to multiply everything in here by everything in here, okay? So that's when we FOIL and when we distribute, when we multiply everything in one by everything in the other, okay? So here, 56, we're subtracting, right? So this is just a combined like term situations. We're not foiling, we're not distributing, we're not multiplying anything in here with anything in here, because this sign tells us to subtract, right? So if we do want to multiply something, we can multiply this invisible 1, this negative 1 here, to each of these terms, right, and change the signs. And remember, that's one way we can do that, but that's the only thing that's being multiplied is what's directly in front of the parentheses, right? Okay, so 54 is tricky too, because we might want to think, oh, well, the 6 and the negative 3 are in parentheses, so we should distribute the 6 and the negative 3. But the 6 is not in parentheses, so that's on its own, and we just distribute the negative 3, and then we can combine like terms, okay? So anyway, so those are the differences, and I just want to just point that out, because a lot of times students in the past, not in the future, but I've seen a lot of students struggle with that and try to overgeneralize when we would FOIL or when we would distribute, okay? So only multiply whatever is directly touching, right? And if it's not in parentheses, then it's not directly touching, okay? If it's not, if it's not directly touching, or in parentheses, I should say, right? Like the 6 here. Okay, so let's try 54. So I'm going to distribute this negative 3. The 6 is going to just stay what it is, right? It's just going to stay where it is and wait for everything else to happen, right? Because we do have to multiply before we can add and subtract, right? So that's why I'm multiplying negative 3 first. So when I multiply negative 3 by 4x, I get negative 12x. And then negative 3 by negative 8 is positive 24. Okay? And so then 6 plus 24 is 30. So I combine these like terms, right? So the negative 12 comes down, negative 12x, and then 6 plus 24 is 30. Okay? All right? So that's as far as we can go with that one, right? 12x and 30 are not like terms, so we can't go any further. Okay, now number 56. Here, with this minus, we're subtracting, and so I can do 2 minus negative 9, right? Or the other way to do it is I can actually distribute this negative 1, right? And then I would get negative 2x plus 9, and then I can bring down these. Since there's nothing outside these parentheses, I don't really need these parentheses since this is basically a positive 1. All these things on the inside are just going to stay the same. So I can just bring them down, and now I can combine like terms. So 2 plus 9 is 11. And then negative 3x minus 2x is negative 5x. Okay, and that's as far as we can go on that one. So a lot easier than foiling, right? In this case, all we have to do is just combine like terms, really. And remember, you can bypass this step if you like to, but just be careful with your signs. It's 2 minus negative 9, which would turn into 2 plus 9. And so that would be 11. And then negative 3x minus 2x would be negative 5x. All right, so 62. So here we are going to FOIL, right? Here we have two parentheses, two binomials that are right next to each other in parentheses, and so that's when we FOIL. And so we multiply 5x by 5x, so we get 25x squared. Then we multiply 5x by a negative 6, and we get negative 30x. Okay, so we multiplied these two here. Now we're going to do the negative 6, right? So negative 6 by 5x is negative 30x, and negative 6 by negative 6 is positive 36. Okay, so the 25x squared is going to come down. No like terms, but negative 30x minus 30x, those are like terms, so it's going to be negative 60x. And then the 36 doesn't have any like terms, so it's going to come down. All right, so you can see the difference in all three of these questions, right? They're all a little different, but they all, can come up in different scenarios in our math problems and future math endeavors. So anyway, so make sure that you understand what to do in each of these different situations.